Okay, we are officially on. Okay, so we have talked in the past about simplifying radicals with numbers. And then once we learned that, we learned how to add radicals by simplifying them first so they become like terms, right? And then we can add the coefficients in front of the like term radicals. What we haven't talked about is variables and how to do it with variables. And sometimes this sort of short circuits people's brains, but it's really very simple. So I want to talk about two things that we need to have as a preface for this to understand these really well. Number one, when you have the square root of anything, I'll just say the square root of x, and I multiply that times the square root of x, what does that give me? It gives me x, right? It gives me x. All right, so if I had the square root of xyz times the square root of xyz, what does that give me? xyz. Very good. If I had the square root of x plus 2 times the square root of x plus 2, what does that give me? X plus 2. Really, really important and really helpful, and I'm assuming all people are taking notes. I'm sorry, what?
I know about the same thing.
Oh yeah. So where's your title? The title is Simplifying Radicals. You need to have, so when you take your notes, I just want to clarify. When you take your notes, you always put the date on the left far left of your notebook, right? And you always put your title. And when Gary writes something on the board, you write it on the board regardless of whether you think you know it or not, okay? Because that's just the way it is. That's how you take notes in a math class. If you don't learn to do that now, you will struggle in high school, guaranteed. Guaranteed. I don't know a single person that can do well in high school without taking good notes. Right? Really important. So, all right, so that's really critical to know. Right? So, the other thing I wanted to talk about is this. That I can write, these are radicals, these are not exponents, right? Actually, these are exponents. So I'm going to show you how exponents are written, how radicals are written with an exponent. The square root of x is the same thing as x to the 1/2 power. That's really important to know. And you'll see why in just a few minutes. And you could also write that as x to the 0.5, right, power. Because it's the same thing. 1/2 is the same as 0.5, right? So when I have the square root of x, it's really the x to the 1/2 power. That's interesting. And you'll see why that's interesting soon. So now we're going to start looking at how to do these. Let's say I had the square root of x squared. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in your way, aren't I? Sorry. Let's say you have the square root of x squared. Now, in order to take something out, it's got to be two of the same thing, right? What times itself equals x squared?
X squared. Wait, what?
What times itself equals x squared?
Wait, but it's squared, so wouldn't they cross out?
Well, wait.
One?
Yes, yeah, but we're going to get, yeah,
X
you're right.
times X?
You're right.
One?
But x times x, right? You agree with me?
Yeah.
X times x. The x would be the thing times itself. That would equal x squared.
What?
Well, as soon as I understand that, I know that's the same as this. Square root of x times x is the same as the square root of x times the square root of x, which means it gives me x. Or if I use that new method that Emma was teaching us, if I cross these out, there's two of them. This is square root. It means I need two of the same number, right? It means I can bring, I'm not going to put that there for now, but it means I can bring out one of those upstairs. And then that will come out, and there's nothing left underneath the square root sign. It's gone. So it just, square root of x squared is x. Now, the square root of x to the fourth is, now what times itself equals x to the fourth?
2x and 2x. X squared times x squared.
Right. Okay, so I heard two answers, and both of them were right. One person said this. They said x squared times x squared. Remember, like exponent rules, x squared times x squared is equal to x to the 2 plus 2, which is x to the 4, right? So I could cross those out, and I could bring out an x up here. Right? Now I'm going to use the other one too. Adam said x to the fourth is x times x times x times x, right? Yes? This is the square root. There's a hidden 2 right here saying I need 2 of the same number to take something out. There's 2 x's right there. I could bring that out as an x. There's 2 more x's there. I could bring that out as an x, and I multiply them together. So I get x squared. Oh, sorry, this would have been x squared. I'm sorry. Go back to this. This should have been x squared. I took out. We got x squared times x squared. The square of that is x squared. You with me?
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward, right? All right, but now, do you notice a pattern? Because I want to, in order to, let's say I did this one, x to the 10th. What times itself equals x to the 10th? Say it again. All right. You could do x times 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 wherever it is.
X to the 2.
What?
X to the 5th times x times the 2.
X to the 5th times x to the 5th. Because that means x to the 5 plus 5, right? So how did you get that, Liam? What? In your mind. Okay. Look at this rule again. X to the 1, the square root of x is the same as x to the 1/2 power. So you're taking the square root of x to the 10th, which means you could multiply the x to the 10th by 1/2. What's half of 10?
X to the 5th.
X to the 5th. Therefore, it's just going to be x to the 5th. The square root will merely take half of the exponent.
Yeah,
So,
that's why.
Let's try this. Square root of x to the 6th. What's half of 6?
3.
3. So the answer is x to the 3rd. Pretty easy, right?
What if it's like 5?
We're not going to get there yet. Don't ever ask me a question like that again, young man. All right?
What if it's like 7?
Oh, well, that's a better question. Okay. No, sir. We'll get there. We're going to get there. X to the 8th. X to the 8th. We've got what? Right. Half of 8 is 4. So it's going to be x to the 4th. The square root halves every exponent. So I'm going to even write that down. That's so important. The square root, whoops, the square root halves the exponent. Does that make sense to you guys? Fist to 5. How many people get it? I want to know. Fist to 5. All right, so we're going to do this in our head. X to the 20th. The square root of x to the 20th. Domenica. Square root of x to the 20th. You want half of 20. So what's half of 20? If you're counting by tens, 10. So half of 20 is 10, right? So your answer is x to the 10. All right, let's try another one. X to the 8th. Half of x to the 4th, right, because half of 8 is 4. X to the 4th. Emma, x to the 12th. X to the square root of x to the 12th, sorry, is x to the 6th. All right, Gabe, square root of x to the 44.
Is equal to x to the power to the 26.
Right, okay. Kareem, square root of x to the 50th. Okay, Landon, square root of x to the 100th. All right, Adam, square root of x to the 200th. Yeah, good, exactly. All right, Serena, square root of x to the 1,000. Right. All right, Amika, square root of x to the 1,000,000. X to the what?
X to the
X to half of 1 million? Is that what you said?
Or X to the 500,000.
Right.
X to the million divided by 2.
Right, which is X to the 500,000. Okay, Amy, X to the 10,000. Square root of X to the 10,000, sorry.
X to the 5,000?
Right, all right, Indu. Square root of X to the 6 million.
X to the 6 million. What is that, like X to the 3 million?
What is it?
Is it
Yeah, 3 million. X to the 3 million. Okay, Elizabeth, X to the 80th. I mean the square root of X to the 80th, right. X to the 40th. Okay, Liam, square root of X to the 60th. 30, X to the 30. Okay, Nathan, square root of X to the 6,000. Right, okay. X to the square root of X to the 12,000. Right, square root of X to the 4,000. All right, square root of X to the 800.
Oh, this is in square root 400.
So X to the
Yeah.
400, right. Square root of X to the 4 million.
X to the 2 million?
That's right. Very good. Okay, you guys got it. Totally. So now, you understand that. That's very good. Now, we're going to go one step further.
Wait, Gary.
Yeah.
We're going to get
What about it? I know. But I have to show
Is
this
this
to you.
gonna be odd numbers now? Odd
Is that one right? Oh, I'm looking at the wrong clock. That's a little different. So, all right, shh, guys. I guess I'm running out of time. I didn't realize how much time I. So the square root of X to the 5th power. This is what Gabe asked. Square root of X to the 5th. This is where people short circuit, and it's really not hard.
2.5?
So, all right. So there are two ways. There's two ways to do this. Who said 2.5? All right. So that is actually the way. How many people know Wesley from Wes Jansen, right? That was the way Wes invented when he was in my class, and I had never done it that way before. And he liked it, and he showed it to other people, and a lot of students liked it, and that's how they do it. That's how a lot of them still do it today. But this is what he did. And I'm going to show you two ways. So this is way number one. Way one.
Technical terms, once again.
Way one. And we'll do way two, right? Okay? Maybe I'll show you the way it's usually taught first, and then I'll do Wesley's way as way two, okay? So this is the way how they usually do it. They usually say, well, the square root of X to the 5th is the same as the square root of X to the 4th times X. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
Because X is X to the 1 power, right? So that's X to the 4th times X to the 1 is X to the 5th. Everybody agree with me?
Yeah.
You just subtracted 1 from that. I know that's a big computation, right? 5 minus 1. If you need your calculator for that, you can use it, right? But yeah, so you just go 1 below, and suddenly you have an even. Well, what's the square root of X to the 4th?
2x.
So X to the
All right, maybe this is too easy for you. What's the square root of X to the 4 million?
X to the 2 million.
Right, okay, what's the square root of X to the 4th again?
X to the 2 million.
Right, so that equals X to the 2, right? You with me? That came out as an X to the 2, right? So times the square root of X. Yes? Yes?
Yeah.
All right, let's try a few this way. Square root of X to the 7th.
Wait, so it's not X to the 2.5?
We're going to get there. That's Wes's way. I'm going to show that to you in a minute. This is the way, this is actually how it has to be written. You don't write it with a half. You don't write 2.5. You write it like this. Okay? But you'll see in a minute. Guys, the talking has to stop for a second. Okay? This is the part that people have to really focus on. So, X to the 7th, the square root of X to the 7th is the same as the square root of x to the 6 times,
Square root of x.
yeah, just times x. That's fine. Right, square root of x. Right.
Yeah.
It's all under the
Never
same.
mind. Okay.
That's right.
And then
So
it would be x to the third times the square root of x.
x to the third, right? Because this comes out as x to the third. So it'll be x to the third times the square root of x. Pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
Square root of x to the 11th. Right? So that's the same as the square root of x to the 10th times x, right? And x to the 10th comes out as x to the 5th, right? And then you still have the square root of x left over. That's really easy, right? Fist to 5, you get that. Fist to 5. Fist to 5, fist to 5, fist to 5. I want to see. Okay, that makes sense? Now we're going to do way number 2, which is Wes's way. Wes, actually Ben and Wes sort of kind of coded it. I think it was more of Wes's, but Ben was part of it too. Camille's brother. They both sort of fine-tuned this method. So they said, well, look, the square root of x to the 5th is the same thing as, what's half of 5? 2.5. It's the same as saying x to the 2.5, right? Yes?
Yes, yeah.
Everybody gets that?
Yeah.
All right. So now this is where you have to look at this. What is x to the 0.5?
X to
It is this. It's the square root of x. So what Wes said is, oh, well, that means I could say x squared. That equals x squared, and then the x to the 0.5 is the square root of x.
Oh my god.
Right?
Whoa.
You see what I'm saying? The x to the 0.5 is the square root of x. The x squared is right there.
Are we done already?
So yeah, you're done. So x to the 7th
It's 10:03.
is x to the 3.5, which is equal to 3. Is this on the? Oh yeah. Which is equal to x to the third.
X to the third.
You just write x to the third and then square root of x for the x to the 0.5. Square root of x to the 15th. Half of 15. Gabe, what's half of 15?
7.5.
7.5. That's x to the 7.5, which is equal to x to the 7 times the square root of x. How many people get that method?
Me and Doug.
All right, so I'm just curious, how many people prefer way number 1? All right, so use way number 1. How many people prefer way number 2? All right, so for you guys, use way number 2. Either one is fine. And I'm sorry, that's the end of the lecture. It took a while.